For your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 368 of This Old Marketing for Friday, March 24th, 2023. And with me, as always, is my pal, my colleague, and a guy who I know is secretly helping the Fed raise interest rates this week, Mr. Joe Polizzi. You are, right? Because your whole crypto thing, right? This is a top secret plan that you have.
No, I don't like. I'm not a big fan of the Fed at this particular.
I understand
point.
this. Yeah, I understand this, but I think it's all a ruse. A ruse, I tell you, a ruse.
A ruse. What they're doing is a ruse, or their jobs.
No, what you're doing is you're because I know you're not a fan of the Fed, but I think you secretly are a fan of the Fed because you're back in. If this is my conspiracy theory, is that you're actually in the background because of how basically well respected and highly skilled you are at financial matters. The Fed is coming to you, and you're actually secretly working with the Fed to raise interest rates because it actually then bolsters the idea of the value of Bitcoin, and that ultimately raises the value of that. So it's all a ruse. I tell you, a ruse.
That makes absolutely no sense at all. But I still liked hearing you say that. No, it's as we record this, the Fed raised interest rates another quarter point. I honestly believe that they weren't going to because of this whole mini bank crisis going on. Because I think that it's unnecessary at this point.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but with the argument I heard, which was I think the best argument yet, which is they probably in their heads went, we don't have to raise the rates, but if we don't raise the rates, it looks like we're scared. And if we look like we're scared, that's only going to hurt things. So they sort of went, let's just raise them a little bit so that it sends a message that we're not scared of this whole banking thing going on. And it's still, it's still low enough that it's not going to make that big of a, it is quote unquote taking a pause.
I think you are correct in what you're saying. And I think they are extremely scared right now because when you look at some of not that this is any financial show by any means, but if you look at the amount of depositor withdrawals from banks over the past 4 months, it's staggering. And it's a trend and you could see it happening. And of course, they're hopeful that this is just a small bank issue. You've got First Republic and you've got SVB and all that stuff. And they're thinking, oh, no, it's isolated. I don't know if it is, but what we're going to see is there's people moving their money from smaller banks and credit unions to bigger banks like your JP Morgans, like your Bank of Americas. And that's bad, I think, for the U.S. economy, where you have basically large banks and no one else to help you.
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you, now again, this is not advice. I'm not giving you any advice here, but I bought some stock in JP Morgan because it was down. It's been down a little bit, and I think next quarter when they start to report deposits, it's going to be they will. I think you're exactly right. And I think a lot of those people are moving their money, maybe not permanently, but certainly right now, temporarily anyway, they're opening accounts. And I think there's going to be a huge cash influx to these larger banks, and they're going to start reporting on that next quarter, and it's going to be gangbusters.
Well, there was a stat that came out that Bank of America saw in 2 days the largest deposits ever come in as people were moving from these other banks too. And it's not just SVB or First Republic. It's smaller banks, like the below $250 billion small is what I'm talking about.
Right.
To banks like JP Morgan, which I believe handle $3 trillion plus dollars. It's incredible what they do. So anyways.
Right. Which is, it's kind of ridiculous because the other stat that I heard, which is, fascinating, is that there have been 73 bank failures in the last 20 years, I think. And of the 73, 72 of them, all of the depositors were covered. So it's not like the FDIC is really respecting this whole $250,000 limit thing. They're basically they're making depositors whole no matter who you are, right, over the last 20 years. So the actual level of risk here is pretty darn low.
I think on the deposit side, did you see, I don't know if you saw the stat from the Credit Suisse debacle that's going on, and I guess UBS is being somewhat forced to buy them. But there was a group of organizations that had $17 billion in bonds, corporate bonds, against, of Credit Suisse, which is now valued at zero.
Oh,
yeah.
Ouch.
So the depositors, not an issue, but they're not protecting the bondholders in this case.
No, though that's true. Well, they're not, and they're not protecting the investors either, right? So the ones who had like for those who had stock in Silicon Valley Bank, they're done, right? I mean, they're out.
Yeah, and again, this is not this old finance show. Nobody should take our word for it, but it is again a reason why I have issues with our, the way that the United States is so bank heavy, and the system is gamed. It's gamed. It is. They're pulling the strings and doing the things, and you've got the people who have, like the JP Morgans and the Bank of Americas, nothing wrong with that. They're going to make out so sweet on this deal, and I think ultimately it's going to be small businesses and smaller investors that are going to be hurt. Even though you just said they're protected, the deposits, it just doesn't feel right. It happens all the time, which is why you're seeing Bitcoin, which is really surprising to me. Bitcoin is being looked at sort of a safe haven. You just can't mess with the algorithm.
Kind of.
So,
right. Well, that's true, but there's also no growth, right? I mean, it is literally just a store of value. You're not, nobody's in there. There's no bank of Bitcoin, right? Where they take in deposits and then make loans and make money and grow out.
No, it's not. It's currency, but you don't. Right. It doesn't have to. When you have the United States basically throwing money around like they are and changing rates whenever they are, whatever, and the dollar is worth less every day, all you have to do is believe that the dollar is going to continue, that the United States system is going to continue to do what it's doing, and Bitcoin will be worth more. That's all you have to. Right. That's it.
That's all you have to believe.
Just if business as usual goes on, that's it. That's my thesis. I don't have any, you're not making dividends off of it or anything. I'm looking at it as I want this, my asset over here, right? Because nobody's going to mess with it.
It's the digital money under your mattress. Yeah, it's the digital money under your mattress, basically.
It's so who knows? Again, not financial advice, and again, you should diversify. You should have your money all over the place, and not just with one bank or one stock. Or back in the day, I remember when my old company, Penton Media, who I tell this, you've heard this a million times, Robert, but maybe our new listeners haven't. In 2001, when I started with Penton Media, the stock price, I believe, was $32, and 18 months later, it was 7 cents. So that's how much value that Polizzi added to Penton Media. And there were employees at Penton that I loved that had their entire 401k in company stock. So
well, here, so I got one for you. So for the new listeners, when I joined US Web in 1999, I got stock options so as part of my employment, and in the middle, and basically it went when I joined, it was at 40 something, 37.
Oh, and that was a high flyer stock too.
That's right. And it went to 40. The peak was 46, I think. Okay. Literally a month before the stock went to zero. So it went from 45 to zero in about 4 months. Because it was just crazy, right? The burnout, the supernova that was the .com bust. I sold because my wife and I bought a house, so I cashed in. Everybody thought I was the dumbest, stupidest, and by the way, I was. This is in hindsight being 2020. It was genius. It looks like a genius move on paper, but it was literally because we really wanted to buy a house, and so I cashed out. I cashed out of all my things that I had vested, and got enough for a down payment on a house. And literally the next month it went to zero, and I was laid off, and my severance check bounced. It was bad. That was the value that I brought to March 1st, 45 to 0 in 6 months.
Wow, it was such a crazy time. That's when I first really started dabbling in investing, and I believed that Excite, which became Excite at Home. Remember Excite, the search engine, was sort of a Yahoo takeoff.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was going to be the biggest company in the world. I thought it was going to be what Amazon is today. And I remember I put a good chunk of money into that. Worthless today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you learn those lessons.
Well, remember Go?
Yes,
remember Go?
Absolutely. I remember all the Lycos and Go and the whole thing. And we're totally dating ourselves because...
that was the first. It was the first that year was my first experience. I didn't get it, but I had so many friends and colleagues at US Web. It was I finally learned what a margin call was, and I literally remember being in a meeting with a client, and a guy, one of our colleagues, got a margin call in the middle of the meeting, where he owed. That basically the bank called him and said, you owe about $200,000.
Oh no!
Right?
What a horrible feeling!
Because, oh my God, it crushed him. It completely crushed him, and it was such a weird and wild time.
Margin, do not play with it. It is
no.
It is not. It is. Yeah. It is not. Well, see, we talked about. So I learned my whole don't do the day trading thing back in 2000 and 2001. Oh yeah. But see, now we're getting into it. That's where you and I have been railing on this whole DraftKings online gambling thing, because it's the same thing, but they're just doing it on sports now, and it's my concern. But here's my biggest concern, Robert, that you can hook up your debit card or your credit card with this thing, and I wish that wasn't possible. Like, I would rather you had to deliver, okay, I'm going to transfer funds over. I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, add some friction to it. Yeah,
we need lots more friction. Everything else going okay in Europe besides
everything
the downfall of the U.S. economic system? Everything else is good.
It's going to be fine, folks. The economic system is going to be fine. Do not listen to this chucklehead. Everything's going to be fine.
Oh, jeez. I'm sure you listened to Prop G. He basically went off on. I know he never said the guy's name. But the one...
It's Jason Calacanis.
We'll say his name, but Prof G didn't say it.
I'll say his name.
Because Jason Calacanis came out. This is when this whole SVB thing was going on. And I saw the tweet. I don't know if you did. You probably... he comes out and Jason Calacanis said, "You should be terrified." All caps.
Right.
"Get your money out now. It's going to zero."
Yep. So and this... Here you go. Here's the final thing that wraps this whole thing into a beautiful little bow. In 2001, after I left US Web, after I got canned and laid off, I went and I joined my pals who also got all laid off in a startup, right? So we started this little startup together called Crown Peak. And it was basically an enterprise software tool and blah, blah, blah. And I was the head of marketing and product and all that kind of stuff. But guess who? I was head of marketing. And so we did our very first booth at remember the Jupiter show? The Jupiter event? Yeah. Guess who my sales guy was? My sales guy for the Jupiter event.
Was it Jason Calacanis?
A guy by the name of Jason Calacanis. Yep.
No way.
Yeah. How about that?
So that was right before he really became... Because he then went into influencer realm and was pretty... Like, I remember, what was it, 05, 06, 07, South by Southwest. He was very well known. Or maybe those are the wrong dates, but
it's a little early. So, it was probably 07, 08. That he got into. First of all, he got into podcasting, and then he went deep in on the startup world. So here in LA, he was actually here in LA, and he was a big part of the Silicon Beach thing here in LA, and he got big into the startup world. And I knew a lot of the people who ended up starting companies that he was, and then he got into the incubator stuff, and from the incubator stuff he got into investing, and then from investing he got into sort of brought it right around into the influencer thing, and then.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit early because it was I think I was at South by doing presentations in, I think, '08 and '09. I think in '09 when I went down there, I just was walking down the street in Austin, and he was sitting at a table having coffee, and I just said, "Hey, Jason, you don't know me," and talked it up, and he was very nice. I mean,
oh yeah, he's a nice guy.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Nothing wrong with it. But that was, it was funny that you heard the same thing I did from Prof G's podcast. Who did not say his name, but basically called him out.
Oh, I knew exactly who it was. Yeah, I knew. I knew as soon as you started talking about him, I know it's Jason.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So, do we have news this week, sir?
We do have a show, actually. Yes, we have a wonderful show here to talk about and really bring all of this sort of marketing, media, finance all together for you.
A nice little
we will start our show with talking about TikTok, because as we speak, literally as we record this, Mr. Chu has gone to Washington and is testifying before Congress about all of the wonderful things that is going on, and we'll speak about that. We'll then talk about streaming services and how there may or may not be a slowdown coming soon to a theater near you or to a television streaming near you. Then we'll talk maybe a little bit about social media and how it's moving from public discussion to private messaging and what that might mean for marketers. And then if we have some time, we'll talk a little bit more about influencer kids and those who have had their childhood made into content and what's going on with all of that. If we absolutely run out of or don't run out of time, rather, we'll talk a little bit about Meta and how they're winding down support for NFTs on Instagram and Facebook. That was the short experiment that almost never really was. Then I will provide a little commentary on YouTube and their new announcement in podcasting, and also talk about this new app that is hoping to win with cough zero-party data.
Oh, you hate
cough,
that.
Cough.
You hate that term.
I guess I think you're going to guess where I'm going with that. And Joe will give a little bit of commentary about Rand's new rant. Rand Fishkin has a new rant about ChatGPT, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. So a fun, interesting show, I think.
Yeah, I actually thought we were going to go into fourth quarter planning on financial concerns, but thankfully you and I are going to talk about marketing here for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
marketing and media.
We'll do that. All right, where are we starting?
Exactly. All right, well, we're going to start here with the TikTok story. Mr. Chu goes to Washington. As I just mentioned, he is today. I don't think he's going to be doing a lot of speaking. He's going to be doing a lot of nodding as the Congress critters yell at him from across the dais. And he will face the House Energy and Commerce Committee during his first appearance before Congress. And it's kicking off literally as we speak. So we've got 3 stories here that we will link to in the show notes, but basically just a discussion about all of this. The one that sort of anchors this whole thing is a New York Times article that we will link to that opens up by saying the platforms are so powerful, their names are verbs. Google, Uber, Instagram, Netflix. For years, the dominance of American tech companies has brought economic benefits to the United States, and it has also offered an advantage in a less obvious area, national security. Tech companies gather incredible amounts of data about their users. They know where we travel, who our friends are, who we watch, what we watch, and they want to use this data for surveillance, law enforcement, and espionage. So they hack, hoard, steal, and buy it. It's a very New York Times-y article. And it goes on basically for some length, I think in a really very good way to provide sort of a 101 or a overview or I don't know what you would call it, a primer really on what's going on with TikTok and sort of the controversy therein. We'll also cover a TechCrunch article that talks about in the heat leading up to this, Mr. Chu, the CEO of TikTok, has taken to the app to announce that the U.S. has more than 150 million active users on the platform. I'm not sure that's going to buy him any sort of clout here, but other than sort of make
the point
for them. Yeah. But anyway, so the TechCrunch article goes on to talk about how the remarkable rise, and also about how he's going to be taking the stand and going into there. And the last one we'll link to, but probably not talk a lot about, but it's a great article, is from Government Technology, which has a state-by-state sort of listing of where TikTok is banned and the actions that states have taken. Really good, informative article if you're looking to get an overview on all of this. So just a bunch of stuff. It's the hottest news, I guess. So what's your take?
Well, yeah, we've talked about it, but it is sort of a new development that seems to be coming to the head as Washington is actually talking about this. And I don't want to mean to laugh about it, but I'm just reading some of this. You've got a few of these Congress people that are like, TikTok is on my phone. It's in my pants. It's the
yeah, right.
I read the thing that said there's a spy balloon on my phone in my pants. I'm like, come on. Are we going there?
Spy balloon,
Mr. Republican.
Now there's your headline for the show.
There's a spy balloon in your pants.
In my pants. That's right.
But I mean, if you look at it from the tension that's been happening between the United States and China, and of course the balloon thing that happened a couple weeks ago, and this is an issue. I do like the way that New York Times is the step by step. There's the two issues that's going on. One is this national security issue. And whether you believe this or not, BuzzFeed talked about the fact that they found that ByteDance was taking some of this data that was acquired via TikTok and IP addresses, and Forbes found a similar thing as well, using some of this data. So there's a security issue. And then you're right, making the point that 150 million Americans have downloaded and are using TikTok basically makes the point that this culture-making machine of TikTok, as we know, can be manipulated, and it might be right now. I don't know. I mean, I don't think this is a conspiracy theory. I think that we just are stating facts that, yes, when you can control the narrative of what's going on in the United States, at least partially, that's a big deal. And at the same time, that's how China treats it with all U.S. apps. We talked about in the show. There's no United States-based app that has anything going on in China. China treats this as a national security issue. So now we've got TikTok on the Hill right now, and the states are going one by one into at least saying, hey, if you're a government employee, you can't have this on your device. And it's funny, Mark Maxheimer, who runs our growth and partnerships at the Tilt, said he went to Cleveland Clinic. He was there for an appointment, and he got on the Wi-Fi and was blocked from using TikTok on that Wi-Fi. There's just little things, little points that we're making here, but it seems to be coming to a head. My question back to you is there enough here that the United States is actually going to do something about it, or is this all bluster like it was in 2020?
I think for the most part, it's bluster, but I do believe that there will be some action taken. And I think it'll be relatively soon. I mean, I don't think anybody should expect TikTok to be banned next week. I think this is going to go on for some time, and the reason it's going to go on for some time is because it's great fodder for sound bites for the Congress critters that are actually, railing against that. They're the ones that are saying there's a spy balloon in my pants. So it's great fundraising. It's great fodder for discussion. And I don't think, in the name of them, quote unquote, not making a rash decision, they're going to extend this out for some time. And I could see a deal being made where TikTok spins out in some fashion. I don't see that. I mean, I think Mr. Chu has come out and said, listen, if you spin it out, it doesn't really make any sense because that doesn't solve your security concern. I agree with that, by the way. I don't think it does solve the security concern because if you believe that the CCP can control it now, I don't know why you wouldn't believe that the CCP wouldn't have backdoors into it if it spins out the company. I mean, that's the issue, right? If you believe, and because that's what Mr. Chu's trying to present and saying, China has never asked for our data and we've never given that data. But if you believe that that's a possibility, that makes the case. That's it, because it's the case with every other Chinese-owned company that I'm aware of. Right.
If the Chinese government asks for something, you have to give it to them.
Right. I mean, if you listen, I mean, you could literally take them at their word. The Chinese government has never asked for data, nor have we ever given it. Right. They don't have to ask, and you don't have to give. They just take it. There's not there. It is as simple as that. I'm sure that I mean, there have been all kinds of reports around how Chinese and or other countries, by the way, have surreptitiously put in employees into some of our biggest companies to do exactly what we're talking about here, right? Which is to either in a very manual way, socially engineer the extraction of data or information or those kinds of things back to the CCP, whether it's, getting an engineer hired at Google or getting an engineer hired at, Twitter or wherever it is, and those people can do what they're going to do, to, putting in those back doors that allow them to either affect the algorithm and or now you might argue that there are better ways to detect that if it's spun out, or that there are ways to prevent some of those things. I don't disagree, but it doesn't solve the issue, right? All it does is change the issue. And the only way you really solve this, if you really do believe that this is going to happen, is you have to ban it. You have to ban it full stop. And as I've said all along, I think that's fine. I think that's fine if they decide to ban it, because, by the way, China bans everything else of ours, right? From Facebook to Google to, all the so many other technology platforms. And it's not that it's only available in a certain way or that there's a spun out Chinese company that offers it in a certain way. No, they just say, you're competing with one of our companies. Boom, you're out. We're not allowing that. And by the way, we're not going to allow you to show any content that is untoward toward talking about the Uyghurs or anything like that as well. So there's all kinds of things to think about here. And I just happen to believe that if you're going to ban it, right? Just ban it. There's no reason to create this policy that tries to create some sort of platform or foundational idea of what, that sets all this up, because you're either banning foreign national platforms that have the ability to affect algorithms, or you're not. I think it's as simple as that. It's because anything that tries to set up an infrastructure where we're going to have rules and if-then statements and all that sort of thing, because then you have to apply it to all of our companies too. And I think there's in the article that you forwarded over from GovTech, which, by the way, is a great article. It's the one that goes by state by state. There's a there's a quote from one of the from the Electronic Frontier Foundation that talks about a wider ban basically stifling some of the freedom of speech and might censor political activism on some of the other platforms. And I don't disagree with that. I think that might be a little extreme, but EFF not known for their lack of hyperbole. But I think it's a really interesting issue, and I think it's one that has so many subtleties, so many complexities, and as usual, our government is taking a bat to it. And I just think it's I wish we would have a little more nuance to our thinking.
I think this part in the New York Times article really hit me hard here, because if you play devil's advocate, right now we know that the United States is trying to paint China and this is a security issue. We've got to batten down the hatches. This is China, China, China. But the real issue is that the United States has had and continues to have access to Google and Uber and Instagram and Netflix and all that information, because those are U.S.-owned companies, and they have rules where they get it, they buy it, they leverage it for their own, for United States surveillance purposes. And this might be the first time that the U.S. feels behind the curve when it comes to surveillance. It is.
Right. That's
so
right.
They're trying to say, look, we were the leaders in the world, but now China's really catching up here because of this TikTok thing. What do we do? So where I think everybody's, oh, no, this is about our security and whatever. I think it's the fact that the U.S. feels way behind the curve with this one and can't do anything because they can't get TikTok's data, and where they can get Instagram's data or Netflix's data.
That's right.
So let's just look at it that way, man. My son would always say, "Hey, what? Yeah, you can look at China as the big bad person in this whole thing, but you know that U.S. has these desires and needs as well.
Of course.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, of course. Right. I mean, you said it really well, I think, and it was something that I thought Professor Galloway actually said really well, which it was almost a throwaway line. He said, but I think it's a really interesting observation, which is in the U.S., our culture here in the U.S. is that we are easily fooled, but very, very difficult to admit that we've been fooled. And it is in that idea, in that sort of exceptionalism idea, where we say we tend to really have a refusal to admit that we have been fooled. But interestingly, because we're not catching up, we're not more nuanced and looking at our the various things that are going on in the world, we tend to believe that we're a little bit, we get a little arrogant, right? We get a little ahead of ourselves, and it's a fascinating thing when you start to look at it, because you're absolutely right, both on the sense of we're doing this too, which isn't an excuse, by the way. It's just an observation that we do this as well. And the affectation of an algorithm is something that is global in nature. And if we don't think we're doing this with Facebook in other countries or Google in other countries or those kinds of things, well, I mean, you're just kidding yourself. So, but it may not be for espionage, and it may not be, it may literally be just shaping opinions in a way that we don't know. You know what I mean? There's the conscious and unconscious of this, right? We're so afraid that China is trying to consciously change the opinion of Americans through the manipulation of the algorithm, or consciously espionage and look for the location of some individual by the fact that they can dig into that location-based data, et cetera. But there's the unconscious as well, which we've seen plenty of, right? The Facebook and Instagram affecting the way teens look at themselves, and those are all just externalities of the same kind of algorithm. It's just an unconscious, like, oh, darn it, we didn't mean to do that, right? So it's a very complex issue, and my hope is that we can start to look at it as
you're right. If you look at the two concerns of Chinese espionage and then leveraging the algorithm in ways that the country might not approve of or like, you could say that the United States is doing that in literally every country. So, here we go. This is against us, and oh my gosh, this is that. I get so just to wrap this up, and we'll get on to the next one. I think from a prevention, I think a diversification strategy is needed if you're heavy TikTok as a marketer or creator. Like you should prepare. You should prepare that it's 6 months before Google Plus announces that they're going out of business, and you've got a big presence on Google Plus. Now, if nothing happens, great, you're fine. But you might want to, if you've got a good following on TikTok and you're doing some amazing things that's leveraging your business in some way, I think that, I don't know if it's 50-50 here. I don't know if it's going to be a ban completely, but something's going to happen, and you're going to need to do something. So there you go.
Yeah, if you're a content creator here, you need to find the door, right? You need to find the exit door. You may not use it yet, but you need to find one. You need to find your exit door and be prepared.
This is where we talk about some kind of get the first party data, addressable data, email marketing would be great if you wanted to have. I'm going to diversify into Instagram Reels as well because of those are conversations you need to have.
Yep, that's exactly right. Prepare, by the way, I think prepare for the easy migration tools of some kind, right? And maybe this is impossible given the way that TikTok structures their thing, but I could see Google, Facebook, just say Google and Meta, right? Offering up, hey, it's easy to export your things to our new platforms. If you're on TikTok and want to get out, you can always just export it over here and start anew. So
true. Yeah. I mean, and we haven't even talked about it on this episode, but you've got their lobbying concerns well represented on the Hill right now.
Oh yeah. Well, it's pretty amazing how quiet right now. It's like Google, Meta. Have anything to say about this?
Could you imagine? Yeah, well, could you imagine being Evan Spiegel from Snapchat and be like, oh yeah, please, for the love of God, this would be the greatest thing ever. Yeah. Please, please, please ban it.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right, let's move on to our next story here, which is about media and streaming. And this comes to us courtesy of Axios, where analysts are now predicting streaming spend and new content slowdown in 2023. The article opens up with a graph actually showing the share of total TV consumption by type. And it's a fascinating graph, actually showing that streaming has had an astronomical rise over the last, let's call it year and a half, really since the latter part, Q4 of 2021 has been rising, but has really in the beginning of this year seen a pretty steep decline in terms of its share. Cable just continuing to go downward, broadcast continuing to go downward, and then they have this other, which has seen an amazing rise. I'm not sure what's covered in other, but this the data comes out of Nielsen, which makes all the sense in the world of why other would be unexplained, because Nielsen is so good at not explaining anything they do. Oh, did I say that out loud? Anyway, the article opens up by saying the number of new original scripted series may start to shrink this year or next after hitting a record high in 2022, say analysts. The amount spent on new content will also slow or contract for most of the traditional entertainment companies. Under pressure to produce profits, media companies are now beginning to pivot their strategies from producing a glut of original content for their own platforms to more cautious spending and licensing out more content to competitors. The number of shows is down this year, and there's no reason to expect it to climb back to prior levels, since Michael Pachter, managing editor of equity research at Wedbush Securities. Everybody suddenly recognized that profitability matters, and they're cutting costs wherever they can. I expect more overseas production, but far less domestically. This all goes and continues to go on, basically talking about how a leading media analyst firm predicted a flattening in 2023 after 2 years of strong digital content growth, and talking about some of the specific players in here, including Apple and Warner Brothers and all of those kinds of things. What is your take on this whole media slowdown, content creation slowdown, I guess is really what we're talking about here.
A couple things. First of all, just a side note, it's interesting, 30% still in cable. Everyone talks about how cable is dead. 30%, it's going down every year, but it's still there. It's still right at the top. How many people still have cable is killing me. So congratulations to 3 out of 10 people in the United States that still have cable. It's amazing. It was interesting when we started to see this really boot up at the end of 2020 and into 21, the amounts of billions of dollars that Apple and Amazon and Netflix and Disney Plus were spending on content. And that was not sustainable. We talked about it many times on the show that there's no way that that's what's going to happen. And finally, you had this little downtick with the economy, and you had all these high-flying tech stocks go down, and people said, oh my God, we can't spend $30 billion this year on content because that is not going to in any way make us profitable. So they're just being more prudent, as you say, get the pencil out, sharpen the pencils, if you will, and figure those things out, and that's happening. And what is most interesting, I wanted to get your take on this, Robert, because we've talked about it many times, this move back to licensing. Because if you look at the Netflix model, it was all licensing, and then Netflix has slowly moved to this original content model, which has been an amazing move for them, and now still doing it. But if you look at a lot of the content that's on Netflix right now, they're licensed foreign programming that they're bringing over, and they're dubbing, and they're changing some things. So they're maybe they went too far into the original content, and now it's like a healthy, I don't know what that is, 50-50 or what it is between original programming and licensing, but you're seeing that move back there because in tough economic times, it's not a horrible strategy to look at licensed content. So I don't know. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, well, I think, here's the thing. This is sort of the easiest thing to predict, and just part of a normal cycle, I would say, right? I mean, I'm not sure there's a lot of news here. It's a really safe bet, just be honest. If you had said, make a prediction about content spending in 2023.
Down.
It's going to come down, right?
99% said down. Yeah,
because it's so high, right? I mean, it got to ridiculous levels in 21 and 22, and so of course it was going to come down, if only to create some level of sanity, because you had this race that was going on for all these brand new networks that were being launched by the major media companies, right? So everybody had to invest in content so that you could have a splashy launch. And that was all competing against Netflix, because they saw the astronomical rise of Netflix. And so it was like, okay, if Apple, if we're going to do this, if Disney, we're going to do this, if HBO Max and Warner Brothers, basically, if we're going to do this, then they had to keep pace, right? Amazon had to keep pace. Now, the interesting to me, the outlier here is Amazon, right? Because Amazon, I think, of all of them, Amazon uses theirs much more as a content marketing platform than the others do. In other words, for Amazon, it's nice if it's a profitable business, but it's not a profitable business, right? The Amazon Prime Video is not a profitable business by any stretch of the imagination.
So it's like a more loyalty effort than anything.
It's loyalty for Amazon Prime, right? That's exactly what it is, and they've done the research to show that Amazon Prime subscribers pay more than, up to 3x more, I think, on a yearly basis than normal Amazon users. And so this is a loyalty play to keep them buying more Amazon stuff. So in some ways, Amazon is a bit of an outlier here in terms of the business model of streaming media, but the others, of course, not. What I'm struck by here is, honestly, if you look at the graph that they have in the Axios article here, just how flat it's been over the last, it's relatively flat. It's not like there's been major changes, except for this other category, which, by the way, as you were talking, I was trying to go out to Nielsen and actually find out what they mean. I mean, I don't know what the hell it is other that has gone from 6% at the end of 2022 to doubling almost to almost 12% by 2023. If somebody can illuminate that for me, it's like cable, streaming, and broadcast. What is other?
Would it be some of these other apps and over-the-top services like a Pluto TV and other things that you can find on Roku? Roku would be another one, maybe.
But isn't that streaming?
Share of total TV consumption by type, other.
Right. I mean, and that other is the story here. I mean, that's the story.
Other doubled.
The story is really other.
So we have to go find.
Well,
yeah,
more than doubled. More than doubled if you go back to October of 2022, where it was at 3.8%. So literally from October of 2022, according to this graph, according to Nielsen, in October of 22, it was 3.8% of the share of total TV consumption. And then by 2023, February, what is that, 6 months? No, just 5 months. It is now 12%. It's 11.7%.
Okay, well,
that's tripling. That's tripling their share in 3 months.
Maybe that's the TikTok, Instagram, Facebook video effect. I don't know. I'm making up stuff. I don't know. We're gonna have to find out.
Yeah,
we'll have to find out. And talk about next episode.
It's fantastic. So as we go through this, maybe I'll try and do a little research as we're.
While I'm talking on something, because you normally don't listen to what I'm talking about, so that's true. That's correct. You could use that time well spent and find out these answers for our audience.
Truly. All right, let's move on to our next story here, which is a really interesting one that actually comes to us courtesy of it's Social Media Today. And the headline here is really an interesting one, is worth discussion for sure. It says, as more social media discussion is moving to messaging, it's important for marketers to take note here. The article opens up by saying, messaging is the new social feed, with more and more users opting to share updates via more intimate circles within DMs, as opposed to posting to their main public stream. A key reason behind this is the divisive nature of conversations within social apps, more political and topical discussion leading to argument, often causing more angst than it's worth. You've likely experienced this yourself, the article says. How many times have you felt the urge to post something, started typing it out, and then thought, nah, not worth it? You might have an opinion on the issue of the day, but is that opinion strong enough to defend your position if you get challenged? Do you really want to wade into an argument with randoms in the comments? For most, they don't. which then pushes more people toward more private sharing because most people have simply had enough of the back and forth that can come with public posting. And that's how leading to a significant shift in focus for the main social apps. Meta, which has seen a big shift toward engagement within messaging, is leaning into this. New additions like channels on Instagram, which is essentially broadcast messaging, and the reintegration of Messenger into the main Facebook app. That could have big impacts on the way that people interact across Facebook and Instagram, while Instagram is also experimenting with enhanced sharing options and DMs, like highlighting previously posts within your inbox. The article goes on to talk a little bit more about this so that it can meet some SEO requirements. But other than that, that's kind of the point. What do you think? What do you make of all that?
I mean, I'm trying to look at my own behavior. I am belonging to a couple groups that we have text strings or message strings, and it's just a smaller group of people. I don't know if that's any more or less than it's been in the past. So I guess my question back to you is this really a thing? Or are they... Is this Facebook saying, oh, Facebook groups started to do really well. WhatsApp really taking off, amazing. So the future of social media is not this broad reach of people. They're small groups, many of these smaller groups, depending on what I'm focusing on and who the people are. Is that what we're feeling here?
I think that's entirely accurate. I'm not sure about the motivation because I don't know that behavior has changed, right? So it's not, I don't think people have moved their political discussions to private DMs. What I find is that they've moved their regular conversations, in other words, sharing about their kids or their vacation or all those sorts of things, into communities that tend to be more birds of a feather kind of thing, right? So I'm the member of many private communities on Facebook. And it's pretty much how I use Facebook these days. I mean, I post the occasional thing on Facebook. You know, if you were to follow my Facebook feed, you'd probably get one post from me every month, every couple of weeks maybe. And it's typically going to be a picture of where I am, right? You know, a beautiful sunset or, you know, something like that I find fascinating, or a movie that I just watched and I'm giving a review of or something like that. But it's not that I'm not posting on Facebook. I'm just posting in groups. So I get it, but it's not that I'm saving my political discussions there. And it's not that I'm trying to save my controversy there for the sort of echo chamber that the groups can sometimes provide. It's because, honestly, it's the other way around. I'm tired of the political discussion on the public feeds and the vitriol and the arguments and all those kinds of things. And that sort of bores me for the most part. And so it's like, I don't want to, it's not that I don't want to create it. I don't want to consume it.
Yeah.
And so I just scroll past it and go right to my communities there. I do think, however, that the article makes a really important point, which is it is something that marketers need to pay attention to, which is how do you start taking it? I mean, we've seen the lean into communities as an overarching trend in both in B2B and B2C marketing is building community. You and I have talked for years about building audiences, and now more and more what I find we're us having conversations on are building communities. And Chris, he had the wonderful quote, which I always love so much and I use. He said basically the difference between an audience and a community is which way the chairs are pointed.
Oh, that was Jay Acunzo said that. I thought, unless Jay stole it from Chris.
No, I think it was Chris. Why am I'm blanking on his last name? Please.
It's all right.
Anyway,
I'll think of it. You'll think of it when you're not listening to me.
Anyway, that's right. I got so many things to not listen to you about. Anyway, that's my take here is that yes, I do believe there is a move to communities, which I don't necessarily, by the way, think is a good thing ultimately, because it does keep us in our echo chambers to a certain extent and keeps us, sort of more tribal in our interactions, and we lose a lot of sort of external opinion on that stuff. But I also think it may be the sort of the way that social media is definitely going.
I think that if you have a larger marketing department, you want to make sure that you have your marketing individuals parts of these different communities that are going on. I think that a lot of marketing teams don't want to do that because they believe it gives too much power to the individual. But I think that's really important to do. So if you have, let's say, 50 different groups out there that you should be a part of, that that would help you with your marketing initiative, you should split up your team to cover those as individuals, as just to be part of them and say, hey, do your thing, be an active member in this. I think that'll protect you from a lot of these things. And you'll also see the behavior that's coming around, whether it is getting into these small echo chambers, as you say, or build small communities, or it's something different. So I don't think a lot of enterprise marketing leads are thinking about that kind of thing. How can I lift my own employees up so that they're thought leaders, so they're thinking about this, so they're learning, and give them the time to learn in these communities as well, so they can come back and report, so we can be better marketers. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's Chris Brogan, by the way. And I can't believe I couldn't remember it.
Chris,
I love Chris.
We love Chris. I was just talking with Chris today.
Yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know why I blanked on his last name, but there you go. Chris Brogan. Lovely, 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 lovely man. And I believe he is the source of the the internet will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he is.
We'll
the
give
source.
credit to Chris Brogan and Jay Acunzo, because I heard it from Jay, you heard it from Chris. We'll just call it even. There you go.
Well, they're both from Boston, so there you have it. All right, let's move on to our. Let's see, where are we?
We're probably at time at Rants and Raves.
We probably are. Yes, yeah. Let's get to Rants and Raves, shall we? So before we get to Rants and Raves, of course, I just want to remind all of you that we've got great stuff. We do have great stuff over at thisoldmarketing.site, our wonderful little website that contains all this nonsense that you and I talk about. You, meaning you, the audience, can subscribe to Joe's amazing newsletter, The Tilt, over there. That's a great place to go subscribe to that. You can link up and join our little Experience Advisors community, which also contains a newsletter. And you can generally immerse yourself in the 367 hours of chuckle-headed goodness that the past episodes of This Old Marketing will bring to you.
Jeez.
Isn't that great? And, of course, the show notes for all the episodes. We bookmark it all for you so you don't have to. That's how much we love you. Of course, story ideas. You can talk to us literally by leaving us a voicemail. Send us a note. Story ideas. You can love us. You can sing us a song, tell us a story, recite a poem, whatever you like. But you can also get us on Twitter. I'm back. I'm going to come back. I'm on Twitter again. So hashtag us up at This Old Marketing with story ideas. We love those things. With that, I've got my commentary. You want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
I'll go first, and then. Okay. So you can do all your research now. I'll go into my little thing. So my whole thing is on ChatGPT, as we've talked about. The new version 4 has come out. Everyone's excited about it. And I've had some really good experiences with 3 and how I use it for headlines, brainstorming and editing and whatnot. So all really good. I guess my concern, and I want to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to bring Rand Fishkin in here to talk about it, where you and I have made fun of this before. I think that a lot of marketers are treating ChatGPT as sort of their own little Teddy Ruxpin for marketing. So that where it's like, I need my little Teddy Ruxpin friend to tell me what to do and that everything's going to be okay. That's sort of what we're seeing. But I want people to understand that what comes out of ChatGPT is not always true or real. Or 100% correct. And I found this little post from Rand Fishkin. I'll put this in the show notes. But Rand's been doing a lot of playing around with ChatGPT and just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that if you go into the FAQ page for OpenAI, who founded ChatGPT 4, will tell you these 3 things. Really important. Number 1, ChatGPT's training data cuts off at 2021. So this means it. And this is really right from the FAQ. And Rand is sharing this cut and paste. This means it is completely unaware of current events, trends, or anything that's happening after its training. It will not be able to respond appropriately to questions or topics that require up-to-date knowledge or information. It does not know who is president of the United States, the latest viral meme, or what day it is. So that's just 1. 2, ChatGPT has no external capabilities and cannot complete lookups. This means that it cannot access the internet, search engines, databases, and so on. Number 3, it cannot verify facts. Very important, folks. Provide references or perform calculations or translations. It can only generate responses based on its own internal knowledge and logic. So Rand is going on and saying, it's really fine to be excited. I'm sort of saying the same thing. I'm on his site here, but make sure that when you post about ChatGPT or you use ChatGPT, you know that a lot of the information is incorrect or it's not able to do all the things we believe it's able to do, and setting those realistic expectations are really important. It's just a tool, folks. It's a really good, amazing tool. It'll never get put back into the corner again. Baby is out, and we've got to let it run free, but it is not perfect by any means. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
Rand was a nice little motivation for me, and I'll make sure that his full statement is in the show notes, and he gets credit for that.
That is good stuff. Yeah, that's good stuff. I foundationally, I agree with that. Right? I mean, you should know what you're getting yourself into, for sure.
I think the
Absolutely.
amount of, and I don't know if you've seen this a lot, Robert, but a lot of people have come to me recently and said, "Oh, I'm gonna do my AI for content marketing, or AI for this, or AI for that, and whatever." And this always happens when you get a new tool that comes out, and that's all great. And there's thousands of these being created right now, and only a few are going to make it. So that's the way it is. It happens all the time, but it is not the end all be all yet that I'm aware of.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. You
right.
have
All
a
right.
couple commentaries?
I do. And by the way, while you were talking on your wonderful little commentary, I did go find what the other category is, and you were correct. It is Tubi, Pluto, the ad-based streaming network.
So why don't they consider that streaming?
Here we go. I mean, get me on a rant about Nielsen, right? I mean, because so where does Netflix's ad-supported thing go? I mean, is Netflix
Is that but that's not
category?
That's not considered streaming because it's not it's not fully paid subscription streaming. Okay.
Right. I mean, where do you go? I mean, so if Netflix ad supported is competing with Tubi and Pluto and all of that, then why is anyway? I'll get off on a rant on that, but okay. Welcome to TV.
I do have to say though that Pluto and Tubi, and I've heard a lot more about those in the last 6 months.
Oh, they're growing
Fubo
crazy
is
fast.
another
Yeah,
one.
I mean,
they're really
they're
growing.
growing crazy
Somebody
fast.
brought up. I was on an interview yesterday. They asked me about Pluto TV. I'm like, you're the first person that's ever asked me this question. It's like, if I want to watch 24 hours straight at Three's Company, Pluto's my place, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Exactly. All right. I have two things to talk about. One is very quick. YouTube announced this week their launch of the podcast. We talked about it a year ago. I went and looked. A year ago, we talked about how YouTube was going to get into the business of podcasting. They finally announced it, that you can create podcasts in YouTube in the Creator Studio. And it's just the most underwhelming announcement of all time, perhaps. I mean, it's literally this is the entirety of the application. The entirety of the application is if you tag a playlist as a podcast, it is now a podcast. So it's literally just a playlist. So yay, there you go. And now, as our friend Stephen Davis has pointed out to us, it's worth doing anyway, right? It's if you're a podcaster or you're doing this thing, it's probably worth doing this because you do get some level of exposure on the YouTube podcast page, and you can perhaps get badges, and you can perhaps get some new audience and reach out of that you might not otherwise, that basically would give you, I mean, for all the 4 people who actually listen to YouTube music, you could get your podcast subscribed there and all that sort of thing. But generally speaking, if you were expecting anything like neat with tools and all that sort of thing, then you might
the interesting thing, you're right, absolutely correct about what you're saying. The interesting thing is if you look at get by YouTube Music and YouTube /podcasts, whatever, they're trying to formalize this thing. But if you ask how many people use YouTube to listen to podcasts or to listen to music, it's huge. It's unbelievable. I mean,
Right.
you could make the case that the number 1 or number 2 platform for people listening to podcasts is on YouTube.
That's right.
So it's just, but they're not going to youtube.com/podcast, just like they're not going
No,
to
they're
YouTube
doing it
Music.
from
They're just on
That's
YouTube
right.
listening to music. So
Correct, and they find it as a search engine, or
Yeah.
they're finding it through, they're searching for Joe Rogan and they stumble on you,
Yeah.
right? That's the idea here. Okay, next, quick. I don't know if it's a rant or a rave no, it's definitely not a rave, but it may be a rant or commentary. This is courtesy of Digiday that there's a new app that's launching through the Apple Store that's hoping to win, as the headline says, with zero-party data when others haven't. And you all know how I love that term, zero-party data. It is not, which is fascinating here because this is yet another definition. So it's not zero party data, and it's not really first party data, nor is it what we typically call just first party data willingly given. And so it's just, so the article opens up by saying, in the 5+ years since Forrester first coined this term zero party data, it has gone nowhere. No, I'm sorry, the article doesn't say that, but it actually says, since they first coined the term zero party data, defined as data that users intentionally share with a company, the phrase has been met with both eye rolls and enthusiasm. I would agree with that. Often, depending on the audience, proponents say it's more of a privacy compliant way to collect and apply consumer data. Skeptics see it as too buzzy, too naive, or too nebulous, or too disingenuous. I don't think that's true. I think it's just the name is silly. It's just first party data that is willingly given. That's all it is. Now, here's the thing. This new app, I guess what it does, I have not downloaded it yet, but I guess the way it's described in the article is, and this is for any of you who do go back all the way to the early .com eras, it's going to sound vaguely familiar, which is you download the app, you basically put in all your information, and they have partners, and apparently right now the partners are Netflix, Uber, Airbnb, etc., and some others that will basically allow you to connect your account. In other words, you can connect your account and get paid, by the way, for their ability to use your first-party data. And so, this. Do you remember the old days, Joe, when there were the advertising companies in .com that would pay you to watch ads, right? They would pay you to watch the ad. That was, and in fact, there was a whole internet system that was, I'm forgetting the name of it off the top of my head, but there was a whole, like, you could get internet connectivity if you would just watch ads. In other words, they would give you free internet. Access to the internet if you would watch all these ads.
Prodigy did that for a while. Wasn't it something like that?
Yeah, I think the Prodigy did it for a while, but it was more like one of the Earthlink competitors.
Okay, got it.
It was like it was a startup. I remember in the early days it was very popular for about 10 minutes. Anyway, this is a whole thing, right, where you have the ability to give over your quote-unquote first-party data and get paid for it. But here's the thing, that's not really zero-party data. In other words, if I'm getting paid by a third party to give over my data, I'm not willingly giving that data because I trust the end user of it. I'm giving it because I want to get money for it and I want to get paid for it. But that doesn't, so if I'm the user of that data, it's kind of silly because it's not really giving me good signal. It's not giving me good signal on intent. It's not giving me good signal on trust or brand or any of that. It's sort of the, basically all we did was remove the middleman from third-party data. In other words, it's still buying a list. You're still just buying a list of people. And yes, maybe you're getting some behavioral data out of that, but you would from third-party data there too. But it's not zero-party data. It's not willingly given. It's sort of willingly given because I'm getting paid for it. So I just think it's the dumbest idea ever. And with all due respect to the startup, I just think it's a silly idea. Apparently, they have 15,000 users at their launch here, and they basically haven't really come up with a name for it yet, or what the kind of data is going to do. And they're offering all sorts of controls and transparency about how the data is going to get used, and all the things I would expect them to say. And basically, there's some quotes in there about some people who are also commenting on it. But I just wanted to say, it's not either. It's not either zero party data or really first party data willingly given. It is simply just data that you're buying that ultimately doesn't give you better marketing insight. That's my.
I think you're just envious that you didn't think of the idea for that business. That's why. Could you really?
Oh
like
hell
it?
no! Oh hell no! I think that's good Lord. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
You can call it the zeropartydatapeak.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Something like
Zero
that.
party date. Yeah,
exactly.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. Fetch is not going to happen. All right.
All right, what do you got going? What do you got going on the rest of the weekend?
The next week, I am here at the lovely homestead. So just working on stuff. All good. And yeah, just busy. Just working on client stuff, trying to get some meetings done, and yeah, it's all. I'm trying to get. My big project on my plate is to get CMI University done. I'm doing my new master class, and aligning it with my new book and all that sort of stuff. So I have lots of video.
Oh yeah, that's always a bear. So I'm glad I don't have to help you with that in any way. But I'll be supportive. I'll be very supportive.
Yeah, thank you. How about you?
No, I think I'm in the office for the next week. We've got
nice.
The early bird pricing for Creator Economy Expo is coming to an end. So now if you want to come, we'd love to see it in Cleveland, May 1st to 3rd, for some of the amazing presentations. And pricing changes on the 31st of March. So now is the time, folks. We want to see that Robert's going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to be doing a little podcast, I think. We think. Yeah. We don't know yet. We don't like to make decisions this far in advance. But we'll be there. Yeah. And we'll probably have to do a podcast.
Tell me how to run my life.
Yeah. So there you go. There
you have it. All right. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to us. And as always, remember, we will see you next week. And because Joe's going to make me show up and I'm going to make him show up. So basically, remember, in the meantime, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We will see you next week on This Old Marketing.